In this video, I'll talk about very major changes to Canada immigration that is coming up soon. Now, if you've been following the news about Canada immigration, you will know that they are constantly making changes, especially to temporary immigration, right? You may have heard the immigration minister mentioning that the plan is to reduce the total number of temporary residents from 6.5% to 5% by 2026. In order to meet this target, they have, been doing a lot of changes just to limit the number of study permit, the number of spousal work permit, the number of work permit, and the number of, spousal permit, and all of these things. So in this video, I'll talk about the recent changes that was announced from on the 18th of September 2024. If these are some of the things that you are interested in, I would encourage you to please watch the video and stick to the end to learn more about some of these recent changes and know how to plan ahead and know how to think about your immigration journey. Now, irrespective of all of these changes, it may benefit you, it may not, but overall, it is their country, right? So whatever decision they think is best for them is what they'll make, right? So as an international student, we can't, really complain that, oh, they've done this, they've done that, right? Because it's their country. So I'll read a few things based on what they released on the 18th of September 2024, and then I'll elaborate on some of the changes. Now, this is what the immigration said, that Canada has been a long and proud history of welcoming international newcomers from all over the world who supports our economy and enrich our country. And in response to labor shortages and the aftershock of the pandemic, the federal government took steps to meet the urgent need of businesses that support our economic recovery. Since then, the Canada economy has evolved, and we must continuously adapt our immigration system to respond to new pressures, including a softening labor market. And I mentioned it before. Earlier this year, Immigration, Refugees and Citizens in Canada, IRCC, announced a decrease in the number of temporary residents from 6.5% of Canada's total population to 5% by 2026. In order to do this, the federal government, they've done, a lot of changes to manage the increasing population of temporary residents and also hold employers that are misusing the system more accountable, especially as regards the work permit. The issue of stopping applying from inside Canada. If you're on a visitor's visa, apply from work permit from inside Canada if you get an NMI job. That used to be available, but that has been stopped. So that's what you have in mind. You better think of something else. Now, they also mentioned that they're reforming the international student program, and they're tightening the eligibilities for temporary foreign workers, and also ensuring that they have strict employer compliance. And this is to make sure that the labor market impact assessment is more rigorous to mitigate any kind of fraud, right? So before now, basically any kind of job, any kind of wage that you're giving will qualify you to get the work permit, right, via the LMI route. But now the employer need to meet a specific threshold in terms of the amount that they're going to pay, right, in order for them to qualify for this, for them to qualify for the LMI. So these are some of the things that they have mentioned in order to manage the increasing number of temporary residents. And according to him, which I think there is something we always have to, have in mind, that their goal is to uphold the integrity of the immigration system and protect vulnerable people. So I always advise people, it is their country, and whatever decision that they make, you have to respect those decisions and just play by their rules, right? Instead of complaining, it doesn't add anything to you. You play by their rules. So what are some of the things? Number one, they are announcing a further reduction of the intake cap on international student permit for 2025, and that is actually based on a 10% reduction from the 2024 target. 2024 target was 485,000 study permit issuance. Now, they plan to stabilize it by 2026. So what they've mentioned is that for 2025, they are reducing the total number of study permits to 437,000. That's probably around 10% reduction. Now, they've also mentioned, the whole issue of post-graduation work permit has been on hold for a very long time, although they made a few changes, at the beginning of the year. So one of the things they've mentioned is that they are updating the post-graduation work permit starting from this fall. And the goal is that they want to better align those that they're going to be giving the post-graduation work permit to programs aligned with immigration goals and labor market needs. So basically, probably not everybody will be eligible to get post-graduation work permit. So that is the reason why if you're applying for a course, moving forward, the first question you have to ask yourself, is this an in-demand program in Canada? And if you want me to do another video to talk about more of the in-demand programs in Canada, let me know in the comment section. Just time, I'll do a video on in-demand jobs and in-demand courses in Canada, and I will do a video on that in the coming days. Another thing is that they are also limiting spousal open work permits. Okay, now, earlier this year, they announced that only those that are doing master's, PhD, and certain bachelor's degree will be eligible to bring their spouse, including those that are doing, so those that are doing 1 year program will be eligible, 1 year master's will be eligible to bring their spouse, right? And they'll be eligible to get a 3 years work permit. But now they are saying that for those that are doing masters, your masters must be at least 16 months to be eligible for you to be eligible to bring your spouse. So for those that were contemplating on doing a 1 year masters, if you still want to come with your spouse, you may want to think about getting at least a 2 years masters, or that's 24 months, or minimum of a 16 months masters program. And then they're also limiting work permit eligibility later this year to only spouses of foreign workers in either management or professional occupation in sectors with labor shortage. So basically, if you are a post-graduation work permit, and you want to bring a spouse, you will only be eligible to bring a spouse if you are working in an occupation that is that is meeting labor shortage. Okay, that's another thing. Now, they also mentioned a few things about asylum seekers. They recognize the fact that the number of asylum claimants that have been displaced all over the world continue to increase and to continue to grow. And they mentioned that they do have a humanitarian responsibility, and the government has been working on several measures to address this in Canada asylum. And one of them is implementing a partial requirements for those Mexican nationals, and then improving claims processing while also maintaining the fairness and integrity of the asylum system. That was announced earlier in 2024. And then they are also reviewing visa-based decision making. The reason is because to make sure that highly trained officers have the right to detect any kind of frauds, right? And reduce the number of non-genuine visitors. So basically what this means is that if you're coming into Canada as a visitor, which, obviously a lot of people on visiting claim asylum, what they're saying is that they are really going to review that, visiting visa, especially to make sure that, there is, reduction of fraud, right? To make sure they reduce the number of people that are coming on the visitor's visa, and only those that critically meets the criteria will be given, the visit visa, and then they are exploring more and more measures to strengthen the visa integrity. Now, I'm going to expand a little bit on a few stuff that I think people should take notice of and kind of, I'll say plan a little bit ahead in the future. Now, this is the big one that I think everybody should think about, that graduates from programs at public colleges will remain eligible for post-graduation work permit for up to 3 years. If you do a one-year master's, you're eligible for 3 years. But if you do a one-year master's, you will not be eligible to bring your spouse, out of more forward, maybe when they announce the date that it will start. But I would suggest, if you're planning for, May or September of 2025 admission, you should probably be looking at minimum a 16 months program or a 2 years master's program. Now, they're saying that those that will be eligible are those that graduate from study programs that are linked to occupations in long-term shortage, right? So basically, not everybody will be eligible, right? So they have not specifically mentioned whether that includes those that are doing masters. That if you are doing masters, there will be certain kind of masters that will be eligible, or that has to do with only diploma. But my guess would be that includes everybody. So whether you're doing diploma or whether you plan to do masters, you should plan to do a program that is in demand. All of those 10 areas, they are good courses. Trade programs, they are very good courses. Any IT related area, I think those ones should be in demand. So, because the last thing you want to happen is study a program, and at the end of the day, they'll tell you that, you're not eligible to get a post-graduation work permit. That is going to be bizarre and really absurd. So you should avoid that. This is the one that I think, I don't want to say it bothers me, because it doesn't really bother me, but I have a bit of mixed feelings about it. Now, as part of the changes to the post-graduation work permit, they're saying that applicants will be required to demonstrate a minimal proficiency in English and in French. I'm asking myself, I came out to study in English, right? So if the university does not require me to be if you're from an English-speaking country, you should be proficient in English. That's why universities or colleges waive the requirement of English for those that are from an English-speaking country. Now, what they are saying is that the reason why they are doing this minimum language proficiency is that this will increase the ability for temporary workers to transition to permanent residents, right? And to adapt to changing economic conditions. So I don't know if, okay, let me just finish it. So they've mentioned that we need a Canadian language benchmark, CLB level 7. Okay, so which means you have to do either the English test, IELTS test, or the SOWP. While in Canada, that is for university graduates. So if you did let's say undergraduate programs or masters, I don't even know, maybe for PhD, that is absurd, right? Then for those that are in colleges, you will need to have CLB 5, for college graduates, and that will be required for anyone applying for a post-graduation permit on or after November 1st. So for those that are in school now and you're planning to graduate, if you graduate after November 1st, you will be required to get English language proficiency before you'll be able to get a post-graduation work permit. So my advice would be, for those that are in the program right now, you should enroll for the English programs at the earliest, so that you can get to finish that before you graduate. Maybe I'll say a few months before you graduate, because those they are eligible or valid for 2 years. Now, they have no mention about how this will affect PRO per se, because when you want to apply for PRO, you technically need to have your English test done. So my guess would be that if your English test that you're using for your post-graduation work permit is still valid as of the time you are going to apply for your permanent residency, then you can still use the English test. But if you run out of luck and your post-graduation work, your English test expires after the 2 years and you still have not gotten your PRO, I'm afraid you'll probably have to write a new English test if you still want to pursue your PRO in the future. I was kind of thinking about this earlier and I was asking myself, so if you do a master's in Canada, so what they're basically saying, you know what, we don't really trust if you can speak English. Basically, right? You don't really trust if you can speak English. So you need to do the actual test and demonstrate to us that they can actually speak English. And I was asking myself, well, did I study did I do masters in Swahili or any in French, in Spanish or in Dutch, right? I did it in English. So for you to have been admitted into the program, it means that you can speak English, right? And you are from an English-speaking country. It's just the assumption that universities, make, which for the most part, majority of students that come from those English-speaking countries, they are able to cope effectively. So, as I mentioned, it's up to them, right? They just have to play by their rules and write the English test before you graduate. And now, this is not the academic test. So, when you are coming to Canada, you have to write on, for those that are not from an English-speaking country, you write an academic English test, right? But for this one, it's going to be the general, right? So you have to do the general for you to be eligible. So I was sort of thinking, why not even just make everybody, irrespective of where you're coming from, write the English test before they want to apply for admission? The problem that would have been is that would have even be another issue, because now those that are from an English-speaking country will be required to do English before they get admission, which is really absurd, right? But it's that choice. And the reason why they are doing this is that if you don't pass, you will not be given a post-graduation work permit even when you graduate from a university or a college. So you should think about that. Another thing they've also mentioned from 2025 to 2026 is that study permit cap will now include masters and PhD. So basically, masters and PhD will now be required to submit provincial attestation letter from January. They don't mention the date specifically in 2025, but masters and PhD will be required to show to get attestation letter, from 2025 and 2026 moving forward. So you really, really have to think about that and plan ahead. So when you apply for admission, you have to think about, the attestation letter. I mean, attestation letter is not basically a big deal. Immediately you get your admission, I don't know if they will have to meet the condition for your on your admission letter, but basically when you meet the condition on your study permit, you will be issued an attestation letter technically. So I don't think that is something to worry so much about. Just that they weren't included. Is basically for colleges and all that required attestation letter. But for now, masters and PhD from 2025, you will be required to get an attestation letter. And the good thing is that they've mentioned that they will be allocating approximately 12% of the total allocation space for these students in masters and PhD, because they really recognize the benefit that they bring to the Canadian labor market, right? So, they're also thinking about that. So it means doesn't really affect, masters and PhD that much, but you just need to get your attestation letter. And they've already increased the cost of living and a few budgets here and there in terms of, supporting the stability and the integrity of the asylum system. So this is the latest news. And as I mentioned, if you plan to come to Canada, You just have to play by their rules, right? If this is what they mentioned, that is how they want their country to run, then if you want to come to that country, they make the rules. You just have to abide and play by the rules and then see how it goes. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, consider smashing that like button and also subscribing to this channel if you haven't subscribed. And also let me know in the comment section, what are your thoughts about any of this process? Let me know which of them you are not really happy about, or if there's anyone that you are happy about, right? Or let me know where you're watching from, right? And then you can also let me know which stage are you in your application process, whether you're doing admission, visa application, whatever stage you are. Just let me know in the comment section, and then I will respond as much as possible. If you're looking for somebody to talk to one-on-one as regards to admission and other things regarding moving to Canada, there's going to be a link in the description. Check out my website, my one-on-one mentorship, and reach out to me. I'll be glad to give you one or two insight in this process. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.